Lewis Hamilton, eh? He came into the season as a rookie, having never raced an F1 car before, and now he's 12 points ahead of his rivals with just 2 races to go. Surely nothing can stop him from becoming world champion now. Oh, this could get interesting. The 2007 Chinese Grand Prix was an unprecedented event in F1's history, as it was the first time ever that a rookie was in position to become world champion. That is, unless you count the very first year of the World Championship, of course, but that's kind of cheating. Anyway, all Lewis needed to do was win this Grand Prix and there would be no need for a deciding race at all. The championship would be signed, sealed and delivered. The first thing he needed to do, of course, was to take pole position, which he did ahead of the Ferraris of Kimi Räikkönen and Felipe Massa. Lewis's teammate Alonso was 4th, and best of the rest was David Coulthard in a rare strong qualifying performance. Further back, Sebastian Vettel was forced to start from 17th on the grid after being given a 5-place grid penalty for impeding Kovalainen in qualifying. When the race got underway, Hamilton got a predictably good start and he led into turn 1. This was the second wet race in a row and he had won quite comfortably in Fuji, so his confidence was high. Behind him, Alonso found his way right around the outside of Massa, cue the Fernando is faster than you jokes, and then there was a spin for Ralf Schumacher, who had started from 6th place. Now look at Massa coming straight back at Alonso into the hairpin and he got him up the inside. So at the end of the back straight for the first time, the top 5 were still in their starting order, Heidfeld was now 6th, and look at Webber and Liuzzi squabbling over 7th place in the sister cars. Further back, the rest of the field arrived at the corner in a jumbled mess, as was customary.
We're riding on board then with the reigning world champion.
Oh, the reigning world champion, so that explains the weather. Sorry, that was a really bad one, sorry. And there's the first crunch count. It was never going to be long, especially in these conditions, and this time it's Barrichello and Davidson who collide. Davidson would be the first to retire in this race due to a braking issue a few laps later, but it's unclear whether that was related to this contact or not. Now, I mentioned earlier the scuffle between Kovalainen and Vettel in qualifying, and they found each other again in the race, although this time it was cleaner and fairer. Vettel was now up into 10th place, an impressive showing in just his 7th Grand Prix. Kovalainen was fresh off the back of his first F1 podium in Fuji, although he had nothing to say to the wet weather pace of Sebastian Vettel. Meanwhile, Vettel's teammate Liuzzi was up to 6th place, passing Heidfeld off-screen. On lap 15, Lewis Hamilton pitted from the lead, coming into the pit lane past that big old gravel trap on the outside, which I mention now for no particular reason. His stop was a good one, and he rejoined in 4th place. All he needed to do to be champion was to finish on the podium ahead of Alonso, and so far that was looking good to come true. Now look at this, 3 wide, nicely done! That's Ralf Schumacher passing Kovalainen and a backmarker spiker on his recovery drive. Meanwhile, talking of spikers, as Räikkönen exits the pit lane after his own stop, here's a nice representation of the gap between himself and Hamilton, who is the silver streak you just saw going through turn 1. Alonso and Massa had also pitted by this point, so the order was once again restored up front. You picked a fine time to leave me loose wheel. That was one of the wheels from Ralf Schumacher's car going on strike in the pit lane, as I would if I'd seen someone driving like this. One of the first drivers to brave the dry tyres was Alex Wurz, who you can see impressively setting fastest lap here in the Williams. This was actually to be the last race of Alex's long F1 career, as the team would give Kazuki Nakajima his debut for the finale in Brazil. Alex was a highly underrated driver who could easily have been a Grand Prix winner if he'd been given more chances, although he would go on to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans for the second time in 2009, showing everyone just what he was capable of. Back to the front, Alonso is still fighting with Massa, and here's his chance. Watch as he slipstreams his way alongside the Ferrari and then uses all the grunt of the Mercedes-Benz engine to pull alongside before slamming on the brakes. Now watch as Massa slides wide, and that's a beautiful switchback manoeuvre from Alonso. The 3 championship contenders were now top 3 in the race, and Massa dived into the pits for dry tyres, also avoiding that gravel trap, which I mention now for no particular reason. While all of that was going on, the other Ferrari of Räikkönen was catching the other McLaren of Hamilton, reeling him in second by second. And look at that! Hamilton ran wide and they went side by side for the lead. Lewis just about held off the Ferrari, but by heck was it close. Remember, both of these drivers were on intermediate tyres on a drying track at this point, so they had to think about preserving the tyres as well as racing. Could have fooled me though. Here we are in the final corner of the same lap, and Lewis got on the AstroTurf. He did a good job not to spin straight off there, and yellow flags meant that Raikkonen couldn't pass him. Look at them both dancing on a knife edge as Lewis runs wide yet again. His intermediate tyres are so bald at this point, there's just no grip at all on the wet patches, and Raikkonen finally takes the lead. Here's why the yellow flags were out of that corner in the first place, by the way. That's Ralf Schumacher spinning off and retiring at the same corner where he had a bizarre spin in 2004, and you see the barriers shake as Adrian Sittel decides to upstage Ralf and have a proper accident, slamming into the wall on the entrance to the pit lane. David Coulthard would be proud. Despite all of that, the winner of the Strangest Incident award has to go to Nico Rosberg, who became a Williams sandwich between the two Renaults before seemingly being scared off the track and then spinning anti-clockwise in a right-hander. Nico was never good in the wet, but I have to say, I have no idea what he was doing in this one. Look how much Lewis is struggling out there. His rear right tyre is down to the canvas and he goes off. Goodness me. He does not want to pit for dries, knowing that the weather could pick up again. On lap 31, Lewis finally decided to pit as his tyres threatened to delaminate. But watch this, he misses the corner and look, he's stuck! The gravel trap has caught a nice tasty McLaren, which it will take home to its young for them all to share. What a disaster for the rookie, who was on course to potentially become world champion. Oh well, at least he's still leading the championship, so surely nothing can go wrong in Brazil. Just look how slick those tyres are. He's asking for a push, but the marshals can do nothing about it. He is out. Oh, and that's Kubica out too! He'd been running very well in this race, and briefly led during the pit cycle. Unfortunately, his hydraulics gave in, although I think he would easily have been in the top 4 otherwise. God, this Grand Prix got super dramatic all of a sudden. Just to show how dramatic, look who are coming through to take 4th and 5th place. That's Sebastian Vettel from 17th on the grid and Jenson Button from 10th. They've been cycled up due to the weather and the attrition, but what a drive from both of those guys. Button then got past Vettel, so the order was now Raikkonen, Alonso, Massa, Button and Vettel. Meanwhile, here's a slightly less elegant move. That's Wirtz attempting to pass Liuzzi for 6th place. Watch this from Mark Webber. Him! He's weaving! Weird. He's clearly not happy about something, and he lost 9th place to Kovalainen shortly afterwards. Anyway, at the end of the race, it was Kimi Raikkonen who came through to claim the victory, and Ferrari's 200th Grand Prix victory, keeping himself in the championship fight. Second was Alonso, also keeping himself in the running, and third was Felipe Massa. 4th place was the very impressive young Sebastian Vettel, who had got back past Jenson Button in the late stages. Button was still 5th, ahead of the valiant Liuzzi, who made this the first time that Toro Rosso had ever had both cars in the points. 7th was Nick Heidfeld, 8th was David Coulthard, and the rest of the finishers were Kovalainen, Webber, Fisichella, Wirtz, Trulli, Sato, Barrichello, Rosberg and Yamamoto. Guys, before I give this race a score, I want to let you know that I have a Dailymotion account for all the videos that get taken down from my YouTube channel by the pesky FOM bots. Due to the high levels of parody, review and education my videos contain, I believe that all of them fall under fair use, but sadly this isn't always enough. On my Dailymotion, you can find the 1996 Monaco and Portuguese Grand Prix, as well as the 2008 Japanese Grand Prix and more. I also now have a Twitch channel where I stream about once a week and would really like to grow my audience. The links to both of these accounts are in the description of this video. Thank you. I gave the Grand Prix a 9 out of 10 overall for its drama and general impact on the season, although I'm sure a certain driver's fans would rate it considerably less. Funnily enough, this race is actually one of the first that I remember watching as a kid, and I have some wonderful memories of this era as a whole. I'll give the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Sebastian Vettel, who could so easily have lost all his confidence after his embarrassing crash with Mark Webber and Fuji, but who held strong to take both his own personal best result up to that point and also his team's. I'll give the Inouye Trophy for Worst Driver to Adrian Sittel, who didn't even have the decency to crash where we could see it. Drive safely guys, and I'll see you next time.